Do you think you're being Kavanaugh'd right now?
I had a member not 45 minutes ago look me in the eye in private, just he and I, and say, that's what they're trying to do to you. That's what they're trying to do to you. That's their playbook. Get ready for more. And they're going to make it up, just like they have so far. All anonymous, all innuendo, all rumor, nothing sourced, no verification, and they're just going to keep doing it because you're a threat to them. You're a threat to their system. You're a threat to all the things in Washington, D.C., the swamp, the things that people have rejected. You're a threat to that.
All right, let's get right to our political panel on this Thursday morning. Joining us is former campaign director for the Obama administration, Robin Biro, and president executive editor of the Daily Signal, Robert Bluey. Both of you, friends of the show, so good to see you both. Robert, I want to talk with you first. As you just saw, Pete Hegseth being very adamant about the fact that he will not withdraw his name from being nominated defense secretary. But there have been several reports that Trump is considering replacing him. Some of the names coming up, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. Would this be a smart move? And where do you see this as it presently stands, this whole conversation? Because he's being pretty strong that this is a media takedown. He's in the media. Obviously, he knows how it works, as do many of us. So what do you think about where we are with this?
Pete Hegseth made the right move by talking to Megyn Kelly, talking to her for over an hour and explaining in quite vivid detail every allegation and rebutting and refuting those charges. I think it was the exact right move. I'd like to see him go on Dr. Phil and talk to Dr. Phil about these things, too. I think that's the best thing he can do right now is to counter these anonymous, what he says are unfounded accusations that are being lodged against him in the media. I think at the end of the day, we know why the media is going after Pete Hegseth, and it's the military-industrial complex and all those people in the Pentagon who don't want him to serve as Secretary of Defense. So if he's going to stick with it and get it confirmed, he needs to be out there in front, doing these interviews, making sure that he's telling his side of the story.
Robin, your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think he's a goner. I think he'll be gone by tomorrow, due to what I just heard yesterday from friends of mine who are serving in the Trump campaign and transition team. So I think his days are numbered because of the fact that in 2014, when I left the military, we were just dealing with cover-ups of sexual abuse, allegations of sexual abuse in the military. We can't have a Secretary of Defense who has the same.
What are your sources telling you specifically, Robin?
That they're frustrated with this process, that he wasn't honest about what the allegations were, and that his days are numbered, and for me to please go easy because they're working their best to replace him.
Okay, Robin, in the meantime, Chad Chronister has withdrawn from being selected as the head of the DEA after mounting pressure came from Republicans regarding one issue that stood out on his record as a sheriff in Florida arresting a pastor during COVID. They just could not get past that. They said Trump doesn't do that. He doesn't arrest pastors. So have you heard any names from Trump's team you believe could replace Chronister?
I have not personally, but I will tell you this. I think each of the last 6 presidents has had nominees who've withdrawn during this whole confirmation process. This is why the Senate goes through the advice and consent hearing process. They want to make sure that these types of things are done before they actually get in the job. And so Republicans, remember, have 53 seats in the U.S. Senate. They can afford to lose 3 of them. And I'd just like to go back and point out that Lloyd Austin, who has quite possibly been the most radical Secretary of Defense with the policies he's brought to the Pentagon, won the overwhelming support of all but 2 Republicans. So any Republican who votes against Pete Hegseth or these other nominees, I think will have some answering to do as how they could support one of Biden's nominees and not one of Trump's.
Well, this question is for both of you because we know that the Trump administration, the transition team, is moving at lightning speed. So out of these most recent nominations, gentlemen, are there any that really stand out to you, and why? Robert, we'll start with you.
Sure. I mean, all of the nominees seem to be very much aligned with Donald Trump's America First agenda. I think that probably is a slight change from what he did in 2016 and 2017 when he was picking other people who weren't necessarily fully on board. The one that obviously stands out the most and will be a significant player is Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, cleaning up the Department of Justice, the FBI, Kash Patel being in the mix there as well, I think will lead to significant reforms that are long overdue.
Robin?
Kash Patel, absolutely, of the recent nominees, because of past statements that he's made about probably going after journalists. And that's going to hang over his nomination. He's going to have to answer to that.
It's been 4 weeks since election night, and we just found out that we got the final House seat count. I want to know, Robin, the GOP is headed for full control come January. What does this mean for Democrats? How do they sort of rebuild from this election?
Joe, make no mistake, we have a massive amount of rebuilding to do, and we don't have any star within the Democratic Party right now, which is why you hear things right now like AOC's name being floated out there as being someone who will be in a position of leadership. That's because she's young and she is a force to be reckoned with, but I don't think that's the direction that we need to be going in, Joe.
Robin, I have a question for you. It kind of made me think of this when you were saying that just now. There is word, and a lot of times this could be rumor, but there is word that there is an army, a coalition of Democrats that are actually planning and building a resistance to Trump's plans, what he plans to do, with this also being a mandate from the majority of Americans that they want radical change. They want to see America put forth. They want to see the border secure. They want to see a lot of the things that the administration is saying they're doing. So what's your take on, and maybe you can give us some insight into these reports that there is this massive resistance building that they are planning to actually put, as many, I don't know if I want to say traps, but as many roadblocks in the way in light of the American people voting so commandedly that they want change.
Well, make no mistake, the popular vote now is below 50% for Donald Trump. So it was closer than it may appear with the Electoral College win. Because, look, Kamala Harris lost by just a little in all swing states, but it was still close in those swing states. But nonetheless, Fanchin, make no mistake, Republicans control the House, the Senate, they have the executive, they have a majority on the Supreme Court. So my advice to my party is to sort of sit back and see if Republicans can deliver on these campaign promises. I counted 167 campaign promises that incoming President Trump has made. Hold him to account. See if he delivers on those, and if he doesn't, we're going to have to see if what we can do in the midterms. But as far as a resistance goes, good luck.
All right.
All right.
Well, we'll end there. Robert Bluey, Robin Biro, thank you so much for joining us this time. And Robert, we love your background. But Robin, you win today for being Christmas and festive.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen. So good to see both of you. Appreciate it.